Gavin McLeod. I'm Creative Director at Wyburn TVWA, and I was Chairman of the online jury, and we spent 2 days looking at that work. So the category we judged was digital. Within that, it's such a broad category nowadays. There's everything from traditional sites, which is obviously microsites, sites, banners, things like that, all the way through to the kind of emerging categories like apps, app development, mobile, gaming was really big as well. One of the biggest categories we saw growth was social. And then there's obviously encompasses integrated campaigns as well, which can be part of a traditionally integrated campaign or an integrated digital campaign as well. A couple of impressions were, to credit to the jury, I think the jury was particularly interested in promoting work or rewarding work that they thought was pushing the industry forward, which was really great. There was a lot of discussion about the need to award work that was bravest in idea and also in execution as well. And I think the jury generally actually felt that they had a role to play, making sure the industry was doing the type of work that we as a jury would like to see it doing. The other thing that I thought was really interesting was certainly the growth of social. There was more entries in social than I've seen in any other category in previous years. So it was really interesting seeing both traditional mainstream agencies and the digital startups that are kind of all over the show, really competing quite strongly in that space, and some of their most interesting work was certainly in there. The judging process was actually really rigorous. How we went through, we started off the day by going through a quick run through of awards guide to how we approach it. Then what we did is we looked at each category and got finalists, and then we voted for finalists, which was all anonymous. After that, we were exposed to the results of that, and the jury then debated what should be, if they felt something that had been overlooked. There was an argument for and against of whether it should come in. That was quite a vigorous debate many times. And then secondly, what would happen is we would also debate about what was currently a finalist, and that same process when it got to medals as well. Like we would vote for stuff, then there would be a discussion about whether people were happy about it being gold, silver, bronze, and where obviously that was a strict for and against argument. Nothing could be only negative, for example. There always had to be someone being the champion of it as well. I think by and large, in terms of calibre of entries, I think by and large there was actually a very reasonable standard. I know in past people, and obviously I think budgets have really started kicking in. People were realistic about what was in, so I think pretty much most of the work that was on the tape, that was entered, had a reasonable shot at actually winning something. It got down to the jury's preference of what they thought were better ideas, but in the previous years there's been work entered where you just go, look, it's got no hope at all. Why did they waste their money? That wasn't the case this year. There was very little of that work. I mean, pretty much everything entered had a shot, and at various points was discussed. In terms of emerging trends, social was clearly a category that had enormous growth. The amount of entries in that were massive in comparison to everything else. Apps and gaming was really interesting to see a lot more work being done in that category, and surprisingly from some what you wouldn't view as traditional digital agencies. And the quality of work in that category was actually really, really high. And then the other side I thought was really interesting was it's clear that there's very little standalone digital work. Most of it was integrated into campaigns, whether it was a traditional campaign with a digital component that was really part and parcel of that campaign, or it was totally integrated digital campaigns. Like it's clear that everybody has finally kind of integrated digital into their marketing plans. No, in terms of what separates the winners, the one thing that the jury talked a lot about and actually really liked was awards quite different to every other show. It's about the idea. So I think the winners that, the big winners and all the winners, basically what differentiated it from everyone else was a fresh idea, and then what probably in most cases was the differentiator between them getting a bronze, a silver, or a gold is how well that idea had been executed. So it still was very much about ideas, but it definitely counted about once you were determining what type of medal it got, it became about how execution, whether it was craft or technical skills. There definitely wasn't consensus across everything. There was one of the great things about the award process is there's plenty of time for debate, and we used pretty much all that time. But what it wasn't a negative debate. I found it a very positive thing. I think people had strong views about what they thought was good or bad, but they were more than willing to listen to other views, and sometimes it influenced their voting at the end of the day. I've judged D&AD, Cannes, quite a few local shows and AdFest, and I think awards actually got a great process. I really like the definition of what determines about the quality of ideas. I think it's a lot clearer than some of the award shows I've judged on, and I think that the level of debate is certainly as rigorous as you would expect it at Cannes or somewhere else like that. And I personally thought the jury was remarkably unbiased and was really good at arguing the merits, and almost every piece of work had a strong champion, and equally it had someone who felt equally as powerfully the other side of the coin.